honor to have seen you, Hal, grow from all these years and see the evolution of you. It's an honor to call you a friend, and it is absolutely an honor to have you on the stage of the inaugural Passion Summit. Hal Elrod, everybody.
All right. So we're going to talk about what matters most. You'll see on the screen there is a question mark at the end of the title of today's message, and it's because that I don't know what matters most to you. I have no right to tell you that. I don't know you well enough to know. Now, there are some universal things that I believe matter most for all of us, but this is the question that has dominated my life for the last year and a half since I was diagnosed with cancer, and hopefully it will dominate for the rest of my life. And I feel like it's a question that we're often not prompted to ask. And for me this past year, I've asked this question really across the board in every aspect of my life. Right? What matters most in life, in the big picture? What matters most in my business? What matters most for me to be the best father that I can be for my two kids? What matters most for me to be the best husband for my wife, the husband that she deserves? What matters most at the Passion Summit? You're going to arguably leave here with pages and pages and pages of notes and ideas and new connections and experiences. So that question, to always drive us toward the highest value in every moment of every day of our lives. What matters most? I'm going to share with you a few stories today, and I frame these, I call them rock bottoms. And we've all had rock bottoms before. A rock bottom, let me define it for the context of our time today. A rock bottom is those moments of adversity that test you, that scare you, that challenge you, that cause you to question sometimes everything. It's those moments of adversity in life where we face something that we've maybe never faced before, or to a degree that we've never faced before, and we often doubt ourselves. Sometimes we doubt God, or we doubt the purpose of life. And it's all relative. A rock bottom is relative. So I would never stand up here and say that my rock bottom was more difficult than yours, or vice versa. When I was in 7th grade, my girlfriend broke up with me. That was a rock bottom for a 7th grader. Anybody ever had that heartbroken experience, right? But looking back, though, you look back and you're like, I was with that person for like 2 weeks, right? But at that time, you were devastated. Like that, your whole world turns upside down. And so rock bottoms are relative. And I really try to remember that as a parent when I'm with my kids. It's really easy to dismiss and go, oh, what they're going through, it's not a big deal. Just suck it up, right? It's my wife's line, suck it up. But really to really be empathetic to every human being on this planet and the journey that we're all going through, and to realize that what might be easy for us might be the hardest thing in the world for somebody else. You saw the video, which, by the way, that was the first 3 minutes of the Miracle Morning movie, which is coming out here in the next few months. So you got a little clip. And in the back of the room, somebody suggested, they're like, can you show us some of the movie? So in the back of the room, I pulled out my computer and I literally inserted one of my favorite scenes from the movie. So little surprise, you get to watch that in about 15, 20 minutes. These pictures are of my car accident. I was 20 years old. You saw the story. And this was really what I would call my first rock bottom. This was obviously very dramatic. It was an experience beyond what I ever imagined could even happen for me or be possible. And it taught me the first lesson, which is what matters most. The first thing that I believe matters most for all of us is what I call emotional freedom. The quality of our lives at any given moment is directly based on the quality of our emotional state, right? If you're happy, then life's great. Doesn't matter what's going on around us. It matters really what's going on inside of us. And what I learned from the experience of my car accident was that every negative emotion that we've ever had, or will ever have, or could ever have, is self-created. It's self-created by our resistance to our reality. Let me explain what I mean by this. So I'll tell you a quick story. I was dead for 6 minutes, in a coma for 6 days. And when I came out of the coma, I had to face this unimaginable reality that I was hit by a drunk driver, that I broke 11 bones, that I was never going to walk again, is what the doctors were saying. I had permanent brain damage. I had no short-term memory. My body was scarred. I was in a lot of pain, and I had to face this. And, this new reality, how am I going, like we all have to face, how are we going to respond to our rock bottoms, right, to our challenges? How was I going to respond? And a week after I came out of the coma, so 2 weeks after the crash, the doctors called my parents in to give them an update on my condition. And they had a meeting with my mom and dad, and they said, Mr. and Mrs. Elrod, physically, Hal has made it through the worst. He is stable, because I had flatlined 2 more times in the coma. So I was very unstable. And at that point, I was stable. They said, he's going to be with us for a long time. They said, but mentally and emotionally, we're concerned. We believe that Hal is in denial or he's delusional. And they said the reason that we think that is every time we interact with Hal, he's always smiling and laughing and joking with us and making us laugh. And they said that's not normal. They said that's not normal, especially for a 20-year-old young man that's being told he's never going to walk again, to just be like, oh, everything's fine. They said, so we want you to talk to him and find out how he's really feeling, because this is actually a common experience or response from accident victims where when their reality is so painful, one of 2 ways. They either go into a deep, dark place, or they become delusional, they can't handle it, so they just pretend everything's okay until it's not, until they finally have to face their reality. And he said, we want him to do that in here, in the hospital, where he's in a safe environment, not out in the real world where he could turn to drugs or alcohol or who knows what other vices. And so my parents were naturally concerned. They came in, and my dad, I was sitting in my hospital bed. Now, keep in mind, it was like a week after that previous picture was taken. I mean, I was in bad condition. My ears, sewn on, my eyes bandaged up, my legs I've got metal rods in my leg, my arm, my elbow. So I'm not in great condition. But I am watching Oprah because I wanted some inspiration, right? So I was watching Oprah. Literally, my dad comes in, and he says, "Hal, can I talk to you?" And he sits by the bed, and I said, "Dad, I'm watching Oh." And I look at him, and his face was it was red. His eyes were watery. And I got concerned because I knew he was meeting with the doctors, and I thought, uh-oh, what did they just tell him? And so I turned off the TV. I said, what's going on, Dad? And he expressed the concerns of the doctors and that they thought I was delusional, denial. That he said, Hal, it's normal for you to be sad or angry or scared or depressed. Those are normal emotions. It's okay to feel those things. You need to be okay feeling those things, and let's talk about how you're really feeling. And I really went inside, I think really based on my dad's concern. I really thought, am I these things that he's talking about? Am I really sad or depressed or angry or scared? Am I covering this up? Am I in denial? And I looked at my dad. I said, Dad, I thought you knew me better than that. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, remember I live my life by the 5-minute rule that I learned in my Cutco sales training. He said, remind me of the 5-minute rule. I said, I've told you guys this. You and Mom would be so much happier if you just listen to me. It's okay to be negative when things go wrong, but not for more than 5 minutes. And he said, okay, I remember that. He said, but Hal, you learned that that's for a much milder adversity. That's for like a customer not buying from you, not being told you're never going to walk again. So it's understandable that you would not apply your little 5-minute rule to this, right? And I said, Dad, you're right, but the context may be different, but the principle is the same. The 5-minute rule said, right, and we literally were taught in our Cutco sales training that when something went wrong, you set your timer for 5 minutes, like when you had a customer cancel an order or you missed an appointment or you didn't hit a goal or whatever. You set your timer for 5 minutes on the phone. And by the way, write down the 5-minute rule. This is good for everybody. I still use this. And I'd set the timer, and you have 5 minutes to bitch, moan, complain, cry, punch a pillow, like whatever you got to do, punch a friend, whatever you got to do. Right. But when the timer goes off, you take a deep breath, and I always would say these 3 powerful words. Can't change it. And that would remind me that if I can't change it, there's no value in wishing that I could. That's an impossibility. There's no value in resisting it and saying, I wish this didn't happen. It's not fair. I don't deserve it. I said, Dad, I can't change that I was in a car accident. I can't change that my bones broke. But I can choose to be the happiest person you've ever met. If I'm in a wheelchair the rest of my life, I'll be the happiest person you've ever seen in a wheelchair. Because I'm in a wheelchair either way, but I get to choose whether or not I'm suffering in that wheelchair or I'm at peace with being in that wheelchair. And so my dad went back and he told the doctors this, and that was the moment that I had clarity, because I had never voiced that before. And I realized that we all have the power to live free from emotional pain. And acceptance is the key that unlocks that door to what I call emotional freedom or emotional invincibility. And it can be applied in everything, where, how many of you don't like traffic? Show of hands. Okay, so this will be a game changer. I might just mic drop and walk off after I teach you this. So traffic's a great example, because some of you are like, well, I don't get in death-defying car accidents that often, so how else does this apply? So when I imagine that we all left, okay, we just left for work, right? And we left late because we overslept or whatever. And we've got to get to work in 30 minutes, right? And we're cutting it. We're barely going to make it, if at all. And we hit bumper to bumper traffic. Think about what your emotional response typically is in that moment. Is it usually positive? Right? Probably not. It's usually some form of stress or anxiety or resistance, right? And what happens is we spend that entire 30, or now maybe it's a 45-minute drive to work, stressed out, literally killing ourselves, by the way, without going into, again, the science of cortisol and what that does to our body and all that. But we're literally doing physical, mental, emotional damage to ourselves in that traffic. And I used to do the same thing. And then I realized that was silly. It was a silly way to live. And so then when I would hit traffic now, you'd hit traffic and you go, oh, wait a minute, I can't change it. I can't change that the cars in front of me are going slower than I want to. I can't change the pace, when I'm going to get to work. I can't change any of those things. But as a metaphor for life, I get to choose every moment of my experience. I get to spend the next 30 minutes however I want. And by accepting all things that are out of our control, we unlock that door to freedom from the emotional pain that we'd otherwise suffer. And so think of it this way. When you're in traffic or in life, you can be stressed out or you can be blissed out. Totally your choice. And acceptance is the difference maker. That's what makes the difference. Oh, how do I go? Can I go back? I can. Okay. So this is this young woman sent me this picture, this email with this picture. She's 19 years old, and this was about, 10 years ago when I was speaking at a college in Canada. And she sent me this picture, and the message, I'll paraphrase, it essentially said, Hal, I saw you speak last week at my school, and I didn't realize how often I was upset over things I couldn't change, but I got your little can't change it wristband after your speech, and about 30 times a day I've had to switch wrists because I get upset over something that someone else does or someone else says or something that I just did that's now in the past, and I create emotional pain. She said, I wanted a permanent reminder that I would never create emotional pain again over something I couldn't change, so I tattooed those 3 words into my wrist permanently, can't change it. And I had a few thoughts. Number one is I was inspired that, wow, my message inspired this young woman to tattoo the message into her wrist. Amazing. And the second thing I thought is her parents must hate me. She goes off to some motivational speech at her school and comes home with a tattoo that's permanent. And the irony is that she literally tattooed something that she cannot change into her wrist that says can't change it, right? Well, what if I come back next year to her school and I'm like, guys, I have a new message. You can change it. She's like, damn it, I've got to get this sanded off, right? So now I thought she's pretty eccentric and this probably wouldn't happen again. And it was literally months later that I got another email from another young woman from another college, totally separate. And I'd never shared the story, so it wasn't like she modeled the other gal. This one, though, put me in tears. This email put me in tears, and I'll paraphrase. This young woman said, Hal, I saw you speak at my school recently, and your message about acceptance, the power of acceptance, and how all of our emotional pain is self-created, it really resonated with me. Because my dad died 10 years ago when I was 9 years old. And I've spent the last 10 years deeply, deeply depressed. I've been suicidal. In fact, you can see one of her suicide attempts in the scar on her wrist. She said, I've been on every depression medication that you could imagine. I've been in and out of therapy, counseling. Nothing's ever worked. And she said, everyone validated my depression. If I ever told them how down I was or how sad I was, they would pat me on the back and say, "You poor thing, you have every right to feel that way." She said, so I owned it. It was part of who I was, my identity. It wasn't until, she said, I heard the 5-minute rule, the can't change it philosophy, the power of acceptance, that I realized I wasn't depressed because my dad died when I was 9. I was depressed because no one told me I could accept that he died when I was 9 and that I could find peace within, even though he was gone. She said, yesterday was the 10-year anniversary of my father's death. And as a permanent reminder that his memory will never again cause me depression, but it will instead only cause me gratitude because I'm his daughter, he gave me life, and nothing can ever change that. She said, I got this permanent tattoo into my wrist. And in that moment, I made a couple decisions. Number one is that the can't change it philosophy, I would share it with every audience that I ever had a chance to speak to because it was so life-changing. From whether it was traffic and being at peace with the little annoyances and emotional pains that we deal with each day, all the way to losing arguably the most important person in your life at arguably a difficult time or worst age to lose them. That we all have the key to unlock the door to emotional freedom. And in doing so, we can be happy, we can be our best for other people. And it all starts with accepting all things that we can't change. And I'd encourage you to try that 5-minute rule because it gives you a little buffer. You still want to bitch, moan, complain? Fair, right? Like feel the emotions, feel the pain, right? Feel it. Just don't dwell on it. I mean, many of us are suffering from things that happened not 5 minutes ago, but 5 months, 5 years, 5 decades ago because we didn't know that we had the power to accept it. My second rock bottom, financial crisis 2008. Anybody around during that time? Was that just me? No? Anybody else have some financial crisis of their own? Yeah, so this wasn't uncommon. This was very common. But in 2008, when the U.S. economy had crashed, I had just hit Hall of Fame with the Cutco company, and my dream was to start my own business. And so I started a coaching business. I was doing sales coaching. I had started speaking, and I had written my first book, Taking Life Head On. And when the economy started to crash, I was in, once again, now that time I really was in denial, right? The car accident, I wasn't in denial. The economy, I was in denial. People were like, you're worried about the economy? I'm like, I create my own economy. I'm an optimist. I don't watch the news, blah, 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 right? And then I started losing coaching clients. And I'm like, oh shit, this is real. This is like a real thing. And my positive thinking doesn't override the fact that people don't have money to pay me for my services. Okay. And so within a 6-month period, it was really this downward spiral where I lost over half of my coaching clients, therefore over half of my income. I was like most Americans where I pretty much lived each month at my full income, so half of my income was half of what I needed to survive. I lost my house. I couldn't pay my mortgage. I canceled my gym membership. My body fat percentage tripled in 6 months because I started eating cheap food, fast food, top rump, whatever. And as a result of so much fear and so much uncertainty and really this downward spiral where, I applied the can't change it philosophy when I lost my first coaching client, but I didn't know how to apply it when I lost client after client after client after client, and everything I tried, nothing worked. And I got in such a deep, dark, scary place. My wife-to-be actually, we weren't married at the time, Ursula, she came up to me one day, and I was just sitting on the couch, and she said, sweetheart, it kills me to see you like this. You've always been the most positive person that I know, and I don't know how to help you. And I know you don't want to tell people about this because I was a success coach. So it's kind of an identity crisis. Like, you're a success coach. You don't want to tell people you're failing miserably, right? And I felt like a fraud. Like, how can I help people succeed when I can't succeed? That was part, I think, the depression. She said, why don't you call one of your best friends, John Berghoff? Any John Berghoff fans in the room? All right. If you need advice, just call John. Everybody, you have my permission. She said, why don't you call John Berghoff and tell him what's going on? She said, John loves you. He's not going to judge you. You always say he's one of the smartest business people that you know. So maybe he can tell you how to get your clients back or get more clients or turn this thing around. And she was right. I was kicking myself for not thinking of that on my own 6 months prior. But I thought, all right, better late than never. Can't change it. And I called John, and I just unloaded on him, and I told him how bad things had gotten. I hadn't told anybody. I told him we were losing the house. I told him I had been depressed. I told him I was, just everything was going downhill. And I was sitting there ready to take notes. I said, John, I'm taking notes. Tell me what to do. Step by step, I will do whatever. I'll do anything you tell me to. Whatever you tell me to do, I'll do it. And I was expecting business advice. And he said, are you exercising every day? And I go, what the hell does that have to do with anything I just told you? And I'm picturing him on his phone playing a game or something. I'm like, well, why would he ask me that? And he said, Hal, if you're not exercising every day, you're not putting yourself in a peak physical, mental, and emotional state that you need to be in to think clear, make the right decisions, have more discipline, more energy to improve your situation. I said, okay, that makes sense. I'll exercise every day. He said, if I were you, I'd go for a jog or a run in the morning. And while you're on that run, my second piece of advice, he said, is listen to some audio, some self-help, personal development, business book, some form of audio that will, while you're in that peak state, you can learn and grow and then run home and apply it to your life, to your business. And it sounded too simple. But I was desperate. I said, okay, I'll go for a run tomorrow, and even though I hated running, but he pointed out, he goes, what do you hate worse, running or your circumstances? It's like, okay, all right, touche, I'll go for a run. And the next morning I left, I went for a run, I heard a Jim Rohn audio, and that Jim Rohn audio changed my entire life faster than I ever thought possible. If you've read the Miracle Morning book, you know where I'm going with this. Jim Rohn said your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development because success is something you attract by the person you become. And I had heard the audio before, I'd probably heard the quote before, but in that moment I stopped and it hit me, it just penetrated me. I was not dedicating time every day to my personal development to become the person that I needed to be to create the success or sustain the success that I wanted in my life. And I really believe, by the way, I believe that is the disconnect for the majority of our world, is if we're measuring success on a scale of 1 to 10, we all want level 10 success, right? Nobody's like, I don't want to be too happy. I'll be like a 6, right? I don't want too much money, then my family comes out of the woodworks and asks for, I'll be like a 5, no. Like human nature, that is the one thing we all share in common is A, we have unlimited human potential. B, we all want to tap into it. Unfortunately, C is very few of us do. And I believe that is the disconnect, is that we all want level 10 success, but we're operating way below our potential at a level 2 or a 3. And how do you close that gap? By having a daily, consistent personal development ritual. I do a thing called the Miracle Morning. If anybody heard of it, but that is it. And that allows you each day, through learning, growing, developing your faculties, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual faculties, you become a level 10 person, slowly but surely. And when you become a level 10 person, level 10 success meets you head on. In any area of life, by the way. If you ask the average person getting a divorce, my parents got a divorce a few years back. It's one of the most hard, I can't imagine what it's like to go through that. But if you ask the average couple that's getting a divorce, why are you getting a divorce? You'd probably get a laundry list of complaints from each person about the other person, right? And that's why they think they're getting a divorce, because this person doesn't meet my needs and they don't do this, they don't do that. And then if you ask that same couple, how many books have you read? Or I'm from Texas now, I can say y'all read. How many books have y'all read on having an amazing marriage? Now, what do you think the answer for most people would be? 0. So wait, your level of success in your marriage is down here, but your level of personal development related to having a great marriage is also down here. Imagine if you started just simply reading even one fantastic book, or read a few, or go to a marriage retreat, right? If they worked on developing themselves to be a level 10 couple where they had all the knowledge and the ability and the belief in what it took to create a level 10 marriage. Now, I'm not saying it's universal. There are such things as incompatible. In fact, my parents fall in that category, I think, but that's another story. But the reality is, right, that is that gap between where we are and where we want to be. The gap is between who we are and who we need to be to get where we want to be. So what I learned from that is that personal development is crucial for us to live the life, create and live the life that we deserve. The 6 practices that I do every day, these are called the savers. This makes up the Miracle Morning. How many of you do Miracle Morning by show of hands? Okay. And how many of you do not do Miracle Morning yet? Okay. So a few of you still. All right. That's cool. Welcome. So these are the savers. These are the 6 practices. Now, none of these are new. These are all timeless. In fact, one of my favorite authors, Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he does the Miracle Morning every single day. And he said this better than I ever could. He said, Hal, what makes the Miracle Morning so powerful and the reason it changes people's lives so quickly is because it's combining the 6 most timeless, proven personal development practices in the history of humanity. He said any one of those will change someone's life. If you did 2 or 3 of them, you'd amplify how quickly and how effectively they could change their life. But because you're harnessing the power of the 6 most proven personal development practices ever, right, that's why it is so effective. And so having a daily personal development ritual. So before this, I was a personal development dabbler. Anybody else a personal development dabbler, right? You don't have to admit it, right? But most of us we're dabblers. Like we start books, we don't finish them, right? We do it personal development for a few weeks, and then we fall off, you know? And I realized having a daily personal development ritual that you do every single day that's totally organized, structured, on point, that was the key. I believe that's the number one key to success, really, for all of us. And I want to dive into one of the savers. We're going to dive into the A for affirmations. We'd have to do a 6-hour workshop to go through all 6 of them, so I'm going to teach you. I'm biased. People ask, do you have a favorite saver? Yes, it's affirmations. I believe this is the most effective for me personally. I like the affirmations, but affirmations have failed most people because I believe they're taught very incorrectly or ineffectively. First of all, anybody, I need to get a clip for this in my speeches from now on. Stuart Smalley, any Stuart Smalley fans? Saturday Night Live, right? So for those of you that don't know who Stuart Smalley is, I'll do a terrible impression of him really quick. Stuart Smalley was a character on Saturday Night Live, and he had the show called Daily Affirmations with Stuart Smalley. And he would sit on his chair, and he would look in front of this long mirror, and he would go, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. Today we're going to have a great show. Like, it was just this really goofy, funny guy. And I think that's why many of us kind of, right, affirmations are kind of a joke, you know? They were made a joke by Stuart Smalley. The big problems, though, with affirmations is the way that they've been taught. If you bring that slide back up. Number 1, lying to yourself doesn't work. A lot of these self-help gurus, affirmations have been taught as I am statements followed by whatever it is that you want to have, be, or do. So we'll use millionaire, for example. It's quantifiable. We all get it. We've been taught, utilizing affirmations, you'd say, I am a millionaire. And the idea is you say it over and over and over and over again to program your subconscious to believe that you're a millionaire. The problem with that is that lying to yourself is never the optimum strategy. The truth will always prevail. So what happens when you say, I am a millionaire, or I am a whatever you are not? Your brain is smart enough to go, no, I'm not. And so you're fighting with reality. You're going, no, shut up. I'm doing my affirmations. I am a millionaire. Dude, you're not even a thousandaire. Shut up. I am a millionaire, right? And so lying to yourself is never the optimum strategy. The second problem is that we're taught to use these affirmations that use passive, flowery language that promises a better future. I'll give you an example. Another, a financial affirmation that's very popular, or some form of this. Money flows to me effortlessly and in abundance, right? I am a money magnet. That's not how money works. That it doesn't flow to us effortlessly and in abundance. Most people that have a fortune had to create an extraordinary amount of value that they add to the world, and then the world pays them for that value, right? People that sit back on their couch and magically wait for money to appear while they stare at their vision board, they're poor. You know what I mean? Right? And so when it comes to using passive language, here's why I think people like it. This is why many people do like that form of affirmations. Because if you check your bank balance in the morning and you're like, oh my God, I'm negative. I can do my affirmations. I'm a money magnet. That feels good. Money flows to me effortlessly and in abundance. That feels good. See, we're deluding ourselves into some fantasy that's not actually going to happen. So if you're looking at your bank account balance and it's negative and that makes you feel icky and you don't like the way that feels, then you read these affirmations that give you this false promise of money flowing to you effortlessly. In that moment, it feels good, right? So I get why people get addicted to those affirmations. But here's the thing. I don't want affirmations that just make me feel good. I don't think you do either. I want affirmations that produce measurable results. If I'm affirming money, I want my bank account balance to grow over the months ahead that I'm utilizing those affirmations. If I'm approving that I'm going to get fit or I'm going to lose weight, I want to get on the scale and be like, wow, my affirmations are working. I'm actually losing that weight. So for me, it's so important that the affirmations or any of the savers, any of the practices, that they are tactical, practical, strategic, and they produce measurable results. So here we go. Here we're going to get into how to create affirmations that will produce results for you. You might want to jot these 4 steps down. Number 1, what you're committed to. So the result. So it's not what you want. We don't get what we want in life unless we are committed to producing what it is that we want, generating what we want, creating what we want. So instead of saying, I am a millionaire, a simple shift in language can make a huge difference. I am committed to becoming a millionaire. I am committed to becoming the wife or husband of my partner's dreams, right? Whatever the measurable result is. And it doesn't have, by the way, it doesn't have to be measurable. Being that many of your goals can fit into this framework, but if you're going to be the best husband or wife, right, that's not very measurable. But what you're committed to, the result, is where you start. Number 2, why it's deeply meaningful to you. Right? Simon Sinek has enlightened the world to the power of why. And the idea that we all understand, or most of us probably understand, that the why is more important than the what, because the why is what drives us to make the what a reality. The why is what gets us up in the morning. When I was younger, when I was 20, I wanted to be a millionaire by the time I was 25. And then when I was 25, I wanted to be a millionaire by the time I was 30. And then when I was 30, it just kept getting pushed off. And then when I had kids, everything changed. When I had a family, everything changed. Because when I first wanted to become successful, it was because I could buy lots of fun stuff that I didn't need, right? Which not really deeply meaningful. But once I had a family and my affirmations were around, I'm committed to becoming financially free because my family deserves that from me. They count on me to provide for them, and I want to provide financial security and freedom for myself and for my family. Once my why was deeply meaningful, I figured out my how. I figured out what I had to do, and I was driven to make it a reality. The third step in creating affirmations that produce extraordinary results is the how you're going to make it happen. Affirm specifically what actions you will take. So if I go back into the days when I sold Cutco, this might have looked like I'm committed to selling $200,000 this year because I need to become the person that is capable of creating everything else I want for my life. But this is a real affirmation from the year I had my best year in Cutco. The why, and by the way, I'll say this again because I think this is a deeply meaningful why that's universal for all of us. Why do anything that challenges us, that stretches us, to become the person that we need to be to create everything else that we want for our life. I knew that if I reached that goal for the year I sold Cutco, of selling $200,000, I would have to develop a level of discipline that had eluded me the 25 years prior to that of my entire life. I realized that I would have to develop a focus, right? Consistency, all these traits that it would require me to reach that goal. That was my why. My why that year, it wasn't winning awards or earning money. It was to become the person that I needed to be with the qualities, the characteristics, the habits, the mindset to achieve the life of my dreams for the rest of my life. And then number 3, so I was committed to making a minimum of 20 calls a day, 5 days a week. See, completely specific, completely measurable. And then number 4 is the win. It's simply you take number 3, the third step, and you get real specific on when. So for me, it was Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., right? So when are you going to run? If you want to write a book, when are you going to write? If you want to write when. And so this affirmation formula is, yes, it still programs your subconscious mind, like the I am a millionaire false affirmation, But this is programming your subconscious mind with a level of commitment that's reinforced by a deep, meaningful why, that is solidified by action steps that will get you there, and that is confirmed based on the time that you will follow through with those actions. So those are the affirmations that are the formula for achieving level 10 success in whatever area of your life that you apply these to. And I'll show you an example. Here are my affirmations. Now, this is a little bit random in terms of you don't see the whole formula. But I just wanted to, this is what I use for my affirmations. Who's visual in here? Raise your hand if you are a visual person. So for me, I like to, I see images. That's where I really resonate and feel emotions that are connected more than words. So this is a great app on the iPhone. It's called Google Keep. And every single affirmation that I have has a picture or pictures at the top to support it. Now, I want to give one more definition of affirmations to simplify them beyond the formula that I just gave you. In the simplest form, an affirmation is a reminder of what matters most. That's it. I'd write that down. In the simplest form, an affirmation is a reminder of what matters most. I have an affirmation, I think it's up there. Yeah, my number one objective in our marriage is to make Ursula's life amazing every day, regardless of her mood or behavior. Guys, make sure that's in there, or it will detract you from your affirmation. You can't base it on mood or behavior. But here's the deal. By having that in my affirmations, as a reminder, I remember to do it every single day, because every morning I read that. And if I didn't read that every morning, guess what I'd forget to do? Make my wife's life amazing, right? It's a conscious focus. That's what affirmations are in the simplest form. All it is you read it and it reminds you, oh yeah, that's what I'm committed to creating in my life. That's what I need to do to create it. That's why it's important. That's when I'm going to take those actions. So even if you don't follow that exact format, understand that it's simply a reminder of what matters most. All right, my third rock bottom. So it was just before Halloween 2016, so about a year and a half ago. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I couldn't breathe, or was having trouble breathing. I sat up and my breathing produced a wheezing that was audible. It woke up my wife. And she said, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And she's always great in crisis situations. And she just said, "Sit up, just sit up." And she put pillows behind me and sat up on the bed. By the way, it's funny. I had a thought that is planted in my mind from that night, that moment at 2 o'clock in the morning when she put pillows behind my bed and sat me up and I could breathe again. I remember thinking, I will never again insult her for the decorative pillows that she has on our pit bed just for looks. The next day, I still had trouble breathing, but if I stood up, I could breathe better. If I laid down, I couldn't breathe. And so my wife sent me to urgent care. They misdiagnosed with pneumonia, sent me home with a Z-pack of antibiotics, and took the antibiotics, and the doctor said, if you're not better in a couple days, go get a second opinion, go see your primary caregiver. And what's interesting is his diagnosis of pneumonia was he wasn't certain at all, but his statement about if you're not better in a couple days, go see your primary, he was very convicted, so I wasn't real sure that he knew what he was talking about. And I went to the doctor a couple days later because my breathing wasn't better. I had to sleep sitting up, which if you ever slept sitting up, it sucks. And I went to my doctor, ran a bunch of tests. The next day we were scheduled to go visit my grandmother with my children the first time ever. We're finally going to go visit my grandma as a family. And I couldn't breathe, so I couldn't go. But I sent my wife and kids ahead because my grandma was excited to see them. And that afternoon, I got a call from my doctor's assistant, and she said, Dr. Berkeley would like to see you tomorrow morning first thing. Can you come in? He'd like to go over your test with you. I said, yeah, sure. Anything I should be concerned about? She said, yeah, the doctor will cover everything with you. I said, okay. And so I went in, and I sat down, and we saw Dr. Berkeley the next morning. And I'd only met this was the second time I'd ever seen this doctor. We just moved to Austin, Texas right before this. And he was noticeably nervous. And he comes in, he says, Hal, so, well, definitely got something going on. And he was kind of beating around the bush. And so I pulled out like a little can't change. I go, Dr. Berkeley, whatever you have to tell me, I accept whatever I can't change. It's totally okay. And like I comfort him. It's okay to deliver this news to me. And he's like, okay, all right. And he says, well, you might have an infection, but you might have cancer. This shows the signs of lymphoma. And I was very taken aback. Anybody that knows me well, you know, I live kind of an anti-cancer lifestyle. I've have for many years. No chemicals in our house. I eat a plant-based diet. It's only organic. I try to do everything I can to live a really clean lifestyle. So I'm like, well, it's definitely not. In my head, I'm thinking it's definitely not cancer. But you know, what's the other? So it could be a virus or an infection. And he said, yeah, we got to run more tests. So we run more tests, and a few days later, I find out that it's cancer. I called my wife, and she was still out of town, and I told her that, I called her when I knew it might be cancer, and I had already accepted it. Part of the evolution of the 5-minute rule and the can't change it philosophy is what I call accepting life before it happens, where once you realize that acceptance is the cause of all emotional pain and that it's not necessary to resist reality and it's not really smart and we don't need to do it anymore, you just make this conscious decision that I'm just going to accept everything that ever happens to me before it ever happens, so that I don't ever experience emotional pain. There's no need. And so that was literally the mindset that I was trying to explain to the doctor. Like, Doc, even if you tell me I'm dying, it's okay. I've accepted whatever is out of my control. It doesn't have a hold over me. And so when I got the news, I was like, probably not cancer, but, you know, worst case scenario, if it is, that's crazy. Wow, you know, can't change it. I guess I'm supposed to learn something from it. And I called my wife, though, and I knew no matter how many times I've taught her the can't change it philosophy, she doesn't process it quite the same as I do. I knew that when she heard this news, it was going to be potentially devastating for her. And so she broke down, and I broke down, and of course, I'm encouraging her, sweetie, it's going to be fine. It's probably not even cancer. Even if it is, I'll beat it. It's whatever. It's okay. And then I called John Broman, and I said, John, you'll never believe this is crazy, but I think I might finally qualify for a front row experience. That was like my opening line. And he goes, what are you talking about? And I told him, you know, what happened. And as he's told me, it was like, you know, that's when a friend tells you that, right? How do you respond? Not the front row joke, but, you know, that the friend has cancer. But my mindset was really, John, if I do have cancer, I'm obviously supposed to learn something from this. Maybe I'm supposed to teach. Maybe there's something new that I don't know that I'm going to teach with other people. But I've accepted it. I'm at peace with it. Don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. And as I think all of you know, you all know, I was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. It's a very rare, aggressive form of cancer, and I was given a 30% chance of living. So that is the statistical odds of living through that cancer. It's 30%. Then the doctors at another hospital, when I went for another checkup or another opinion and further testing at MD Anderson Hospital, which is one of the top cancer hospitals in the world, they discovered that I had a cellular mutation called a NUP1, NUP-1 mutation. And that was so rare that there were now no odds for my survival. So 30 was the best, but it was somewhere between 0 and 30 with this mutation that I was diagnosed with. It's so rare. In fact, if you Google it, I think it's page 4 of Google before you find the first mention of that diagnosis. So, like the car accident, like coming out of the coma, like when all of us hit a rock bottom or traffic or anything in between, I had to decide how I was going to respond to what I was faced with. The lungs kept filling with fluid. And so this is me one of the many times that they had to stick a giant needle in my back, sorry it's graphic, and drain fluid out of my lung. And they would drain 1 liter to 1.5 liters of fluid at a time, which is like one of those giant Fiji bottles, right? So this was horrible and painful, and I went into shock one of the times, but I had to go get this done like every other day for 2 weeks as they were trying to figure out what cancer I had and how they were going to treat me. This is me going in for my, MRI or CAT scan? What is that machine? MRI? All right, yeah. I'm not very medically savvy. So that was going in to further test me. This is where they then found that I not only had the fluid in my lung, but I had fluid surrounding my heart, and they told me that it was about an eighth of an inch thick, and that if it grew by another eighth of an inch, my heart would not be able to beat anymore, and I would have a heart attack. And so I had to go in for emergency procedure where they had to stick a needle in my heart and drain out the fluid, and I had to sign a waiver saying that there was whatever chance that my heart would beat into the needle, and then it would stick my heart, and I'd have heart failure. So not a fun process. This is them draining fluid from my heart, my lung, and I think my kidneys. This is going in for that procedure. This was a really emotional day. In fact, my dad and I talked about this the other day. We talked about this the other day, but this was where it became very real, right? When I started my chemo, and my hair started falling out very quickly. And for anyone that's gone through cancer, I'd imagine for probably a pretty loaded experience for most. But my wife, shaved my head, and she's bawling, as she shaves my head. All right, this is a good opportunity to show you guys a clip from the Miracle Morning movie, so I can pull it together. All right, go ahead and play, please.
Seconds to go.
10 seconds. How's my plank? How's my posture?
4, 3, 2, 1.
My 2017 Healing Cancer Affirmations. I will do whatever it takes, putting forth extraordinary effort to beat cancer and live a long, healthy life for my family. I will beat cancer for Ursula because I committed to her forever in a day, and I want to grow old and spend the rest of our lives together. I'll beat cancer for Sophie because she needs her daddy. I'll beat cancer for Sophie because she needs her daddy's love and influence. I'll beat cancer for Halston because he needs my love, leadership, and guidance. I'll beat cancer. I don't normally read these out loud. I read them to myself. I'll beat cancer for Dad because he gave up everything to heal me and save my life. I'll beat cancer for Mom because she doesn't deserve to lose another child. I'll beat cancer for me because I want and deserve to live a long life. And I'll beat cancer for the millions of people who are themselves battling cancer or some other disease and don't have the knowledge or resources that I do and desperately need my leadership and support. All right, those are my affirmations. Time to visualize. That wasn't the best clip to play for me to pull it together. I just realized. No, not at all. All right. So, the power of personal development, though, right? I continued my miracle morning through the cancer journey, and I do believe that's a huge part of why I healed and why I overcame the cancer. In fact, I've been reading a lot about epigenetics and various sciences, right, that are kind of proving how our thoughts literally, right, I mean, they program our biology. And where you see spontaneous healing, it's people that maintain unwavering faith that they can heal, and they affirm it every single day. and they do the things necessary, logistically and physically to heal. But I really believe in the power of that. And that really, the miracle morning and having that morning ritual, that personal development ritual, that is you taking control of your life. That is you saying, I'm not just going to go through the motions, wake up at the last minute and see what my day brings me. I'm going to wake up every day and I'm going to create my day. I'm going to literally make every single day the best day of my life. And it has nothing to do, again, with what goes on outside of us and everything to do with what goes on inside of us. This is me exercising in the hospital, doing some push-ups. I'm a germaphobe, so no way was I putting my hands on the floor. Hooked up to my IV, though I'm literally getting chemotherapy right there. I'm getting chemo through my IV while I'm doing push-ups. It got really hard. That's me with the hat and my wife. This was by far the most difficult year of my life, most painful year of my life, scariest year of my life. A lot of pain, a lot of time in hospitals. This is getting a lumbar puncture where they had to stick chemotherapy in my spine. This resulted in me missing the best year ever blueprint. For those of you that were there, year before, not this last year, but the year before, this was the moment that she injected my spine incorrectly, and it gave me horrific migraines for 6 days, where I couldn't function. This was one of 2 eye infections that I got, which, in case you can't tell by looking at it, that's really painful. It's really painful. And it got worse than that. It swole completely shut to where my eye wouldn't open at all. This is my dad. Every night, my mom or my mom, dad, sister, whoever was with me caretaking, they had to flush out my lines. I had this permanent line in my arm where they put the chemotherapy in, because the chemotherapy drugs are so strong that if they put them in your veins, they will burn through your veins and burn through your skin. So I had a tube that was permanently in my arm that went up my vein into one of my major arteries here that was thick enough and strong enough to handle the chemotherapy. And this brings us to the last point in terms of what matters most, and that is relationships. Before I got cancer, I would have considered myself level 10 in every area for the most part, really. Just level 10 success, personally, professionally, financially, relationally, love my wife, love my kids. I was on cloud. I thought my life was exactly where I wanted it to be. And the cancer opened my eyes to the ways that it wasn't. And this was the biggest way, is relationships. I was a workaholic. And whatever badge of entrepreneurial honor that you use, to hustle, to grind, to whatever it is, I thought, I was lying to myself unknowingly, telling myself it was all for the people that I loved. And deep down, I think that was a part of it, but it was for me. I was trying to meet some sort of need for significance or, an ego-driven need. I don't know, but I had my priorities wrong. And now I thought that they were in order. If anyone asked me, what's your number one priority, I would have said my family. If they would have said, what matters most to you, I would have said my family, my wife, my kids. But my schedule didn't reflect that. And reflect on whether or not your schedule reflects that. And now I play with my kids every morning. I play with them every night. I take them to school. Now I make sure that my actions reflect what I say are my highest values, my highest priorities. And I'm going to give you guys so here's, during the cancer journey, this was Sophie and I on our daddy-daughter date. During this journey of having cancer, when I wasn't focused on healing, I was focused on relationships. This is me and Halston, my son, playing. This is us doing Cosmic Kids Yoga. Any Cosmic Kids Yoga fans? Write that down. Go to YouTube. Cosmic Kids Yoga. So cool if you have children. Really, really fun. This is us out on the boat. This is us playing soccer. And that's me 40 pounds lighter. I lost 40 pounds in like a month. It was crazy. And here's the acronym that I'm going to leave everybody with. So we have the SAVERS, right? Silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing. Those are your personal development practices. Well, this is the acronym that I believe opens the door to what really matters more than anything else. And it's what we already have. It's our relationships, the people that are already in our life. You think about that. think about what we focus on, what we think matters most to us, and it's outside of us. We're always striving and achieving for things outside of us, when what really matters most, it's at home, right? We already have it. We don't have to go out and get it, but we have to nurture it. We have to nurture it. And here's how: selflessly add value every day. Selflessly add value every day. In 2004, I read a book called Love is the Killer App, and it opened my eyes to my purpose in life. And my purpose, I wrote it down, was to add value to the lives of every person that I could. And then one day, I got a phone call from a friend who is here, who will be speaking at this event. And he was in a really bad place. I don't know if he'll tell you about the bad place, but I'll tell you in case he won't tell you. He was in a bad place at that time. And I'm sure you have people in your life that, you know, if they're negative people, or he was one of the most positive people that I know, and you'll see that when you hear him speak. But then he was in a really dark place. And he called one day, and I looked at him, and I looked at the phone, and I thought, I don't have the energy to talk to him right now. And then I remembered my purpose that I had just defined a week earlier: to selflessly add value every day to every person. And I went, wait, he might need me right now. And I picked up the phone, and we had about a 10-minute conversation. And he shared with me that things were going better, but he still was having some challenges, and he let me know what those challenges were, and I gave him some advice. He was so grateful that we had the conversation that I took that call. And it affirmed in my mind to live my purpose, to selflessly add value every day. And to me, it's a universal purpose for all of us. It's not my purpose. Well, a few years later, I invited that friend to the Best Year Ever Blueprint, the first year that I ran it. I wanted him to be there. And he caught me in the hall before the first day of the event. I can't give this message anymore. I'm a mess. All right. So my Miracle Morning message, no problem. All right. This is a new message, by the way. So he caught me in the hall, and he said, Hal, hey, I got to share something with you. You probably don't remember this, but a few years ago I called you, and I was at a really low point, and I was contemplating suicide. And he said, you picked up the phone that day, and that conversation changed my perspective, and I decided that I was going to not only live, but my life was going to be better than it had ever been before. And I said, Alex, I absolutely remember that conversation, because that conversation was a game changer for me. It was life-changing. It solidified my purpose in life. And to hear you tell me that part of the story, it blows my mind. And so for the people in your life, starting with those closest to you, your loved ones, your family, your friends, wake up every day, have an affirmation that asks, how can I selflessly add value to the people that I love today? How can I save my family, my friends, my relationships? If you're in business, I ask this question: how can I save my clients, my customers, my community? And I'll leave you guys and gals with a quote in a second. 1 year can change everything when you decide what matters most. That's our family pictures from 2016 and then 2017. And here's the quote I'll leave you with. The greatest gift that you can give to those you love is to live to your full potential so you can help them live to theirs. It starts with emotional freedom. You nurture it every day with personal development. And then you put all of your energy and the best version of you, the youest you, as Julie Reisler would say, every day into selflessly adding value to your relationships and the people that matter most. Thank you for listening to me today. I love you guys. Enjoy the rest of Passion Summit.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, sorry, I'm staying up.
Ladies and gentlemen, Hal Elrod. awesome. It's an amazing journey that you've had. It's inspiring. And if you haven't read the book, we'd like to give you one.
Nice.
And
You get a book.
yes, and you get a book, and you get a book, and they're being passed out right now. So this is the Miracle Morning. On behalf of the Passion Summit, we'd like you to each have a copy of Hal's book. So we've known each other for a really long time, and seen your highlights, seen the pitfalls. What I'm curious for you to share with everyone that's here is when you see the next pitfall, because you're visually at a high and you see, and all of a sudden the door gets closed out or a chair gets pulled out from under you. What is that determination inside you that keeps you positive? You are positive, but what is it that is a takeaway that keeps you positive in those situations?
I think there's a few kind of thought processes or mantras that I go through.
There you go.
Thank you. It's good to have the AV guy interviewing you. The things that I go through, I think internally, number one is acceptance, right? And it's those three words, can't change it. That's the first thing that reminds me, if I can't change it, it's my choice to feel emotional pain. I don't have to feel emotional pain. Another thing that I think helps me is and I can't remember what that, I think there's a name of a prayer, but it's just a reminder that it's temporary, right? Everything is temporary. And reminding myself that, even though I wanted this really bad, the loss or missing out on it or not working out they wanted, that's temporary. There will be something else. There will be something else that's probably even better. So I think faith comes into play too. Just having faith that if you consistently move in a positive direction and you do good things and put good out into the world, that life will reward you. And that's been my experience. And I think that's an underlying belief that I have that keeps me always moving forward, even though you hit a stumbling block or an obstacle. And also part of it is looking to, anytime we hit adversity, like with my cancer, I had the belief from my car accident that what can I, or the question, what can I learn from this that I can use to help other people? Because if we overcome adversity, we're always learning how to overcome adversity. And that can always serve us in the future, and it can serve other people in the future as well. So I think those kind of, looking at the fact that accepting what I can't change, the idea that it's temporary, and then looking at what can I learn from this that can serve me and others moving forward.
That's awesome. And because you're in this situation and you have your family on one side and you have you and your drive and every generation, what do you do to comfort them? Because one thing I'd like to share with each and every one of you is the last time that Hal was in the hospital, you saw the people that didn't have the same support structure that you had. And while Hal is in the hospital fighting for his life, he wants to help the people that don't have these support structures. Can you touch on that aspect?
Yeah, I think it was actually, I had recorded a video blog. I did 4 video blogs during my cancer journey, and 3 really early on, and then 1 after I was cancer-free. And I was reading through hundreds of comments on YouTube on one of the videos, and this woman said, "That's so nice for you that you have so much support," because she had seen all the comments underneath. She said, hopefully hopefully you'll pray for someone that doesn't have the support that you have. And that was a light bulb moment. And I went from this feeling of just like gratitude for the support that I was getting to realizing, wait, I'm a rare case. Most people don't have a Miracle Morning community of 100,000 people that that are praying for them. And so I immediately switched and went, wait, I need to help people that don't have this kind of support and this, and my mind expanded quickly to go, people don't have the financial support that I have. They don't have the relational support that I have. They don't have the knowledge that I have, and not just me, but I mean, some people have it, some people don't. But that was just a big breakthrough. And so I founded a nonprofit called Support the Unsupported, which it's in the process of being founded. But, and immediately, I guess that was, I posted my next video, said, hey, everybody, somebody commented on the last video, how could I help others? I would love for all of us to commit one thing you'll do this week to go help somebody else, whether, go visit a hospital, go, do something to help somebody else that's in need. And we had, I don't know, hundreds of comments, people saying, oh, yeah. I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. So, yeah.
And that just speaks to volumes as to who Hal is. We have a couple of mics that are going to be coming around right now, so I'd like to take just a few questions from the audience, and we're going to go into something in a moment to reflect on this, but I know Trent has a couple of mics. Any questions or anything you'd like to address from Hal directly? Sophie?
Thank you so much, Hal. That was an amazing talk. You talked about when that first girl who got the tattoo was talking about how the pain she was continuing to experience was from people telling her it was okay to feel that way. A lot of times I respond to people that way when they're going through something difficult because I don't really know how else to handle it. What's a compassionate way to help people move to the next point without seeming dismissive or cold?
Yeah, I don't know if this is my expertise, but my wife would tell you it is not my expertise. But I would say that number one is meeting someone where they are is really important, right? So if somebody is, and that's where I have a challenge sometimes, is I try to jump to the conclusion, right? Which is like, my wife will come to me and say, she's upset or something. Sweetie, you can't change it. Move on. And I know I can't change it. I don't want you to tell me I can't change it. So I remember that, I need to feel what she's feeling. And I think that's the most empathetic, compassionate way to relate to people is to try to really feel what they're feeling. The difference is, and that's where I don't know that there's an exact time frame, right? But 10 years of feeling terrible, it's far too long, right? Even 10 months is probably far too long. 10 days, maybe that's okay, right? So I think you have to, it's an art, not a science, but it's really understanding where somebody is, trying to understand where they are, asking them how they feel, getting them to talk about that. And then I think the most effective way, and I don't know if there's a perfect way, but is to guide them through questions. Right? So ask empowering questions like, so what, I don't know, do you think, is there any maybe lesson in the situation that could help you in the future? Some sort of questions that get them to focus on what value might come of this, right? You could even ask them, have you ever had an experience, and again, this isn't day one, this isn't like the day that they lose someone, this is, after you've talked to them for a while. But to potentially even ask them to reference a point in their life where they've had to overcome something really difficult or challenging, and then ask them how they overcame that, or what thought process did you go through to heal and to grieve through that. Another thing is, I like to get someone a book on whatever it is that the challenge they're dealing with, right? It's a way where, because again, like I said, I'm not the expert, and so in helping someone grieve, I'm not the expert in that either. So I might get in the book that is by an expert on how to do that would help them. Or, and here I just thought of this, but an effective way would be read that book yourself and understand how an author or an expert compassionately guides someone through the grieving process, and then you can apply what it is that you're reading in conversation with that other person. So, yeah.
All right,
Thank you for the question.
Right over here.
Oh, yes.
Hey, Nicole Keating.
Hi, Ryan. I was just thinking, I have experience with grief and losing someone and suddenly, so I could just add on to that and say, if it's really sudden and something happened and you don't know what to do, just being with that person and letting them know that you're there, and then thinking about what they might need in their life. Like for me, I was so blessed to have an angel pay my rent for a month because my boyfriend passed away. It was been over 8 years now, so I can talk about it, right? And I'm in a different place, but in that moment, there's things that you don't think about that they might need, like they don't even think about eating, a ride to the hospital, like just being of service and thinking about what you would need, and just being there and just showing up as a friend. You don't have to know what to say, just being with them. My best friend slept in my bed with me for a couple days, and I'll never forget that, So I don't know if that helps.
Awesome. No, that's great advice. And that's people did that for Ursula. And people would always call me and go, what can I do to help you? I'm like, help Ursula. You know, like I've got the medical staff taking care of me. And so, but the way they helped her is like we have like our friend, the Osborns, David and Tracy Osborne, they have a chef that makes them like healthy vegan food or whatever. So they had her send whatever they made for their family, they sent to Ursula. So they had food dropped. They just asked themselves, what would make her life easier while she's going through this difficult time? She probably doesn't want to cook dinner every night, so we could help the family that way. So yeah, Nicole, that's really great advice. Thank you.
And one more, Isaac.
So Hal,
Isaac.
I have a few people in my life that are self-destructive by nature. They make self-destructive choices, and I'm compassionate by nature. So I tend to, when I spend more time with them, find myself falling into those habits. Some of their self-destructive choices are appealing, pleasure-filled, and they tend to be resistant to any sort of hope of change for their future. Very pessimistic, very aggressively resistant to any possibility of change or healing from what they're going through. I tend to be the opposite, vastly so. How do I basically come to them in that extremely dark place where they're extremely resistant to something like this, where I think that information, this mindset could really help them in their time? What's the best way that you would suggest I approach that without coming forefront and seeming like I'm better than them? And I know that, but I come from more of a humble place.
Yeah, great question. And so your question, just to clarify, it's how to help them directly, right? Yes. Okay. Again, there's first of all, if people don't want to change, there's only so much that you can do. So let me answer. I'll answer on a bigger perspective, which is you mentioned that for you personally, really, this is for you. You mentioned that you're susceptible to sometimes being pulled into their self-destructive behavior, right? I believe that we have to limit the time that we spend with people that bring us down and that are not adding value to our lives, even if they are our family or our closest friends. There's the philosophy that we are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with, and there's a lot of even statistics that prove that in terms of our income level, our happiness baseline, all of it, right? And so I really do believe that A, yes, you want to help your friends, but B, for you've got to limit the time that you're spending with people that aren't helping you be better. And here's the thing. You can make that out. Here's my more direct answer to your question, and then tying it all together is have a heartfelt conversation with them, right? That, to me, that's what real friends do. Most friends, right? And I'm a people pleaser. I don't like making people uncomfortable, so it's uncomfortable for me to have this kind of conversation. But I call it a real friend accountability talk, which is where you sit down and you say, hey, look, I want to have a talk with you. And you make sure they understand this is an important talk, and that you're coming, and you let them know you're coming from, you lay the context with, I'm coming from a place of love right now. I care about you tremendously, but I also, we have to have some real talk right now. And then you have that conversation, you lay it out there. Here's what I see, here's how I see it hurting you. And they're probably going to get defensive. Keep reminding them, look, I understand. I'm coming from a place of love right now. You could even do it in a letter. In fact, that's actually something that usually I'll do if I want to have a difficult conversation with someone. I will usually type it out first so I can talk through it in my head, and then I'll even, on a Word document, like I'll edit it, I'll get my thoughts down, and then even rehearse, if it's a really important conversation, and rehearse it. And then I will go and have that conversation. So letting them know where I'm coming from. And again, you can organize it all on the document so that you can think through it. Whereas in the middle, if you just go and have the conversation, good chance you're going to say something wrong in the wrong order that's going to upset them or hurt their feelings or whatever. That gives you a much better chance to plan it out ahead of time and then have an important conversation like that. So that's what I would say is you have that conversation, and then the kind of closing piece is, and maybe you don't have it in the first conversation, maybe it's later, but you let them know that it hurts me. Like I get pulled in, and you can say, because I love you, and I love hanging out with you, and I love spending time with you, and I love when we do the self-destructive behavior sometimes, it's pleasurable, right? But I've realized it's not good for me, and it's hurting my life. It's hurt in whatever specific ways you can give. And so I'm asking for you. I love you. I want to see you be your best. And obviously I want to be my best too, and I want us to do it together. So hey, would you be up for, and then have some sort of plan of action of go to the Passion Summit together, or the Best Year Ever Blueprint, right? Or would you be up for reading this book together? Or would you be up for us, exercising together, or us, taking, not doing this other thing, whatever it is, right? You have to, so relate to them compassionately, right? Call them out on their bullshit and in an empathetic, compassionate way, and then offer a plan of action. And then ultimately, if you do that and you try and you give them, the benefit of the doubt and maybe give them a few chances and they still don't change, that's when you have to decide for yourself, how important your own, because we can't give the world our best if we're letting other people drag us down, because then we're not being our best. And so it's hurting not only them by us endorsing their behavior, and it's hurting us, but it's hurting every other person that we could impact in a positive way if we weren't engaging in those self-destructive behaviors. Well,
Ladies and gentlemen, Hal Elrod.
one more hug, buddy.